Hello, and welcome to Rom-Com Recaps. Today we're going to look at the classic romantic comedy, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Buckle up, spoilers ahead. Let's begin. Our story starts with Andy as she continues being a successful lifestyle magazine contributor. But she talks to her co-worker Jeannie about how she always wanted to write about something more substantial. Meanwhile, Ben is trying to make his way through the traffic outside, and he eventually finds his way to his parking spot. Spears welcomes him as he gets off the bike, and Ben tries to hit on her. She turns him down, and when Green comes out and joins them, she heads out with Spears to go to their appointment at the magazine. Before the meeting, Andy goes to get Michele ready for the staff meeting since she's still at home wallowing over a breakup, and Ben heads into his advertising agency. When he finds out that his big tip actually ended up being given to Spears and Green, he makes a plan to take it back later that evening. Back at the magazine, Andy and the girls make it back to the magazine, and they give Michele dating advice on the way. During the staff meeting, the boss, Lana, wants someone to write a piece about Michele's breakup, and Andy thinks that she can use this chance to show why people get dumped. Lana tells her that her article will be How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and that's the tie-in to the title. That night, the girls go out for drinks, and Andy assures them that she'll have no problem driving a guy away in 10 days. At the bar, Ben tries to commandeer the sales pitch with Spears and Green, and Spears decides to make a wager to see if he's the one for the job. She chooses a woman for Ben to make fall in love with him in 10 days, but he doesn't know that she knows about Andy's project. She chooses Andy from across the room, and Ben agrees to the terms. Andy and Ben leave the bar together to go on their first date, and he takes her to a seafood restaurant. The two of them get to know each other a little bit, but they seem to have a connection that neither of them really saw coming. After dinner, they head back to Ben's place, and they both start hatching their plan to fall in love and lose each other. Ben tries to take things slow, but Andy tries to put the pressure on him at the same time. After some mixed signals, they end up saying goodnight, and they both think that they're winning the bet. Andy ends up leaving her purse, and Ben takes it to work with him. After the guys knock it over, Ben notices tickets to the NBA Finals inside, and he decides to send 100 roses to Andy to secure his claim to one of them as a date. At the game, the two of them find out they've actually got a lot more in common than they originally realized, and they even get a special moment on the kiss cam. After that, Andy decides that this is the perfect time to try and lose him. With a minute left in the game, Andy sends him to get her a drink, not just once, but twice. Ben pulls off the perfect nice guy act, but he misses the winning shot. To top it off, they go to the movies the next night, and Andy tries talking throughout the whole movie. This infuriates a big guy who is sitting behind them, and after he yells some choice words at Andy, they all step outside to clear the air. Instead, he hits Ben solidly in his face, and Ben and Andy end up laughing about it in a minute. The next day, Ben decides to have Andy over for dinner, and he plans to make her an entire feast. What he didn't expect was for her to bring over items to make the house feel like it's got a touch from a woman. Just as Ben serves up his tender lamb, Andy throws out there that she's a vegetarian. She's not, but he has no idea. So, instead of watching Game 2 of the finals at home, Ben takes her to a restaurant for vegetarian food, but there's no TV here, at least not out in the main area. What Ben doesn't know is that Andy is sneaking into the kitchen to eat meat and watch the game with the chefs. She also humiliates him by telling the waitress that he said she was fat. After a humiliating dinner, they head back to Ben's place, and Andy tries to get things going. Things seem to be going well until she calls his member Princess Sophia. After that, Ben seems to lose all motivation to get it on, and she decides to head home. Before the elevator closes, Ben stops it to ask if he can see her tomorrow, and Andy can't believe that she hasn't lost him yet. The next day, Ben tries working on the diamond pitch, but his head is all screwed up from Andy messing with him. She really turns up the heat now as she shows up at his job to show him that she got them a dog to take care of. Better yet, after work, she comes over to Ben's place to show him what their children would look like as she pulls out a family album she photoshopped together. Ben almost messes up when he points out that they don't have children, but he pulls it together quickly. Andy's skills in Photoshop really test Ben's resolve, and his mother even calls for Andy since she took the liberty of contacting her first. Ben is really starting to question how he's going to be able to make it the whole 10 days, and he goes to the bathroom to compose himself. It's here that he realizes that Andy has overtaken his bathroom, but he can overlook all that after she tells him that she's got front row tickets to a once-in-a-lifetime event. Ben thinks she's talking about the third game in the playoffs, but she turns out to be a woman of her word when she takes him to see Celine Dion in the front row. The next day, Andy tells the girls everything, and she can't believe that Ben is still sticking around. She thinks that she has to go to extreme measures, and Jeannie suggests that she infiltrates boys' night poker game tonight. That night, Ben is having a great night with the boys when Andy suddenly shows up with cucumber sandwiches. She also admits that his landlord gave her a key to the apartment. Andy takes over boys' night, but she still knows that she has to go to extreme measures to break him. After storming out of the apartment, Ben catches up to her to ask why she's been acting crazy lately, but the conversation ends with him breaking up with her. When he goes back into the apartment, the guys remind him that he has to suck it up for 4 more days to get the big account, and they suggest the plan of going to couples therapy to buy him 4 more days. After thinking about it, he rushes down the fire escape to cut Andy off, and she can't believe that he's still holding on. She agrees to his idea of couples therapy, and she takes him to an emergency session with her own therapist. Her fake therapist is Michele, and they team up on Ben. Ben actually throws out the idea of taking Andy to see his family, and Michele runs with the idea to Andy's disdain. She has no choice but to go along, though. After bonding with the rest of the family, Andy finds out that she's the first girl that Ben has ever brought home to them, and his mother warns her not to break his heart. Later on, Ben takes Andy out to teach her how to drive his motorcycle, and after a little trial and error, they stop for ice cream. After a great day, they head back to his parents' house to clean up after their date, but Andy gets emotional after thinking back on how true the emotions are in this house. The two of them lose themselves in each other, and they get up close and personal with each other in the shower. The next day, they take the ferry back to the mainland, and they seem better than ever. Ben takes her to her building, and he invites her to the diamond party tomorrow as his girlfriend. Andy realizes that tomorrow is the 10th day, and Ben tells her that he's already got tickets to the final NBA game on the 13th day. Later, Andy heads to Lana to tell her that she can't go through with the article, but Lana won't stand for her backing out. The next night, Ben arrives to pick up his date to find Andy waiting for him already, and his mind is blown. They head to the party together, and they are completely unaware about how many people that know about the bet are actually there. As the party goes on, Ben's boss thinks that Ben might have actually pulled off his bet, and he goes over to see if Andy is the real deal. As Philip goes over to check, Spears and Green follow closely. When Philip brings up the possibility, Andy can't find the right words to describe how she feels, but Philip seems to know well enough. After Spears and Green hear the result, they know that they have to take drastic measures to make Ben lose, and they plant the thought that Andy knew about the bet all along to Ben's co-workers. They, in turn, head over to Andy to tell her to keep playing along, but on the other hand, Lana is talking to Ben about the diamond pitch. When she realizes that he's looking at Andy, she mentions the new article that Andy is writing, but Lana doesn't fully understand who she's talking to until she looks at his sad face. Just then, Andy decides to grab a mic to address the crowd, and she actually calls Ben to the stage to sing a song. When Ben gets on stage, he calls Andy up to the stage to sing a duet, and they end up hashing out their personal drama in front of everyone. The fight continues out onto the street, and the two of them call it quits officially. The next day, Andy turns in her draft of the article, and Lana loves every bit of it. Lana tells her that she can write about whatever she wants within the confines of her magazine, and Andy realizes that this is not where she wants to be. Meanwhile, Ben spills his heart out to the dog, and he takes a moment to look at the ticket he got for the final game. That night, Andy ends up crashing at Michele's place, but Michele is surprised by the guy that dumped her from the beginning of the story. Andy advises her to talk to the guy, and Michele gets her happy ending. The next day, Ben is working on the diamond commercial, and the guys tell him to read Andy's article. It turns out that Andy wrote about how much she regrets losing the only man she loved, and Ben rushes to find Andy before she leaves the state for a job interview. Eventually, he has her cab pull over on the bridge, and he asks her if what she wrote was true. She admits that every word was true, and he convinces her to stay in town with him as he kisses her. That was How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe for more.